You're just inviting someone to come into your world, into your ecosystem.
Okay.
And the person might not buy from you until 3 years down the road. I mean, I've been on the other side of that where there are programs that I bought into where I've been following this person or this brand for years and I trust them. I subscribe to their podcast or, watch their videos, but I didn't buy until many years later. So the offer can be just coming into the ecosystem. Welcome to King Moves. In chess, the king moves one step at a time, but that single move can change everything. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and simple actions that could lead to the next breakthrough in your business and life. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA, entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa, entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures as we think out loud, challenge assumptions, and uncover the small moves that create big momentum. Welcome to King Moves. Let's start the conversation. Today, Ethan is about to take me to marketing school. He was telling me, getting started, we were touching base very shortly before we hit record here, and Ethan is now going to really dive deep into, you said, direct response marketing versus
Yeah,
brand awareness.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Dan Kennedy. He's marketing legend. He's been around for, I don't know, decades. An old guy, and he has all the no BS books. And I'm currently revisiting some of those books, and they're all about direct response marketing. So direct response marketing means marketing that you can calculate an ROI on. You can easily trace it back and see how this ad is performing, how this post is performing. And he doesn't believe you should do any type of marketing except direct response marketing as a small business. So the other type of marketing would be like brand awareness marketing, like how you see a company sponsoring the Olympics or something like that. How do you calculate the ROI on something like that? So he doesn't believe in that. As a small business, we could easily waste budget. We don't have a lot of budget to play around with. So I understand where he's coming from. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And he actually has Dan Kennedy's 10 rules for direct response marketing. And I have them stuck to my wall in my office, behind my office desk over here. Now, I don't always live by them, but I do. I get the concept. So I want to go through the rules with you and see what you think and where maybe they have applied with some of your clients, your business clients that you coach, or even in your own business.
So
So,
before we
mm,
jump into
okay.
those 10 rules, so my immediate thought is, and our good friend Rich Mulholland always says, go to war with something. When he speaks about
Mhm.
finding a speaking topic, he would often say, go to war with something. Is Dan Kennedy going to war with brand awareness? Do you think that's part of it? And the reason I say that, because brand awareness, what comes to me, and I'm not a marketing specialist, but what comes to mind for me is the familiarity bias, a cognitive bias that we all have. And the familiarity bias basically states that we don't know what we like what we know. And whenever I hear that line, to me, that is brand awareness. That is billboards, that is a subliminal messaging that people always used to speak about. Coca-Cola is, yes, while you're watching TV, subliminally, there's Coca-Cola messaging behind the TV show that you're
Yeah.
watching, whatever it may be. But that's what comes to mind immediately for me. So I'm really interested to hear the 10 rules and why direct response marketing is better than, or doesn't just work in conjunction with brand awareness.
Yeah. Well, he would say that the brand awareness should come as a side effect or a side benefit of the direct
Okay.
response marketing, and you should not be your primary goal to get a million likes or a million followers on Facebook, because you can't track that if you can't directly correlate that to income.
Okay.
But if you put ads out that do produce income and you happen to get famous because of it, or you happen to become a familiar brand, then that's great. That's what he would say. But you know what? You talk about going to war with something. Let's go through each of these 10, and I want to see
Yeah.
which ones you go to war with and which ones you agree with. So, rule number one: there shall always be an offer or offers. Make every communication actually ask somebody to do something, ideally an offer that the appropriate prospect or customer for you cannot refuse. So he's saying he's basically saying you should not do any type of post or email or video or anything unless there's some offer attached to it.
Sure, I would agree. So let's call the offer having, there should always be a call to action, some form of a call to action. What are you asking your audience to do at the end of the day?
Right.
I would
Okay.
I would agree with that, particularly if you're wanting to be able to measure it. Because if that is missing, impossible to measure.
Right. Yeah, I agree too. It can be tough because you don't want to sell something every time. You don't want to always be selling, because that could be a turnoff. But there should be some type of call to action, and it doesn't always have to be buy this. So it could be something you're giving away, maybe a white paper, a PDF, something like that, a lead magnet, or a free workshop with you, or something like that, where you are getting someone to do something. So yeah, definitely agree there.
The way that I would look at it would be the call to action should be empowering them to buy, not not be trying to sell to them, because it's a different thing. When you're empowering them to buy, you're giving them the choice and the power to buy, to make the purchase from you, versus the call to action feeling like it's being pushed onto them, being sold. That would make them take a step back. But I think we
Right.
agreed. Rule number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also the long play, because you're just inviting someone to come into your world, into your ecosystem. And the person might not buy from you until 3 years down the road. I mean, I've been on the other side of that, where there are programs that I bought into where I've been following this person or this brand for years, and I trust them. I subscribe to their podcast or, watch their videos, but I didn't buy until many years later. So the offer can be just coming into the ecosystem. Rule number 2, there shall always be a reason to respond now. And he puts respond now in all caps. He says the hidden cost and failure in all advertising and marketing, with the almost persuaded who set it aside to respond later, and later never comes. He's saying attach a sense of urgency to every offer.
So that's a sense of urgency to the call to action. Give a deadline.
Yeah.
Time pressure. I agree with the caveat. As long as it is done with integrity, as long as it is done ethically, it's not a timeline that is ultimately detrimental to the buyer, to the purchaser.
Gotcha.
That would be it needs to be from a place of good intention, ultimately for the customers to still be winning, not to pressure them into a purchase that they don't need to make.
Right. No, I get it. But yeah, basically you need to have some reason that they need to do it now, because people naturally want to just keep putting things off. And even if it's a built-in, like, for example, when I'm doing my AI workshops, well, if you put this off for another year, another 2 years, you're going to be way behind in the learning curve. So there's kind of a built-in sense of urgency with that. But if you don't have a built-in sense of urgency, then he's saying you need to create one so that people have a reason to act now.
And I think that's where an organization's brand promise and brand guarantee would come in. So your brand, if you commit right now, this is the promise we make to you. This is the experience that you're going to receive. This is the level of service. This is the value that you're going to get. And if you don't, and this is where a lot of companies do, 30-day money back guarantee, or try it for whatever length of time and no questions asked. If it doesn't work for you, we'll give you your money back. So that's kind of where the brand of the business is. They're putting their money where their mouth is, as such. I think that's a good opportunity. Link your brand promise and brand promise guarantee to that deadline, and that's that pressure to make the purchase now.
Yeah, agreed. Rule number 3, there shall always be clear instructions on how to respond. Confused or uncertain outcomes do nothing, and people rarely buy anything of consequence without being asked. Most failures result from giving confusing directions or no direction at all.
Agreed. I can think of countless times where I got pissed off with something because I thought it wasn't clear on how I was meant to respond, or the method of communication. And then I just left it immediately. Yeah.
Somebody says, if you confuse, you'll lose.
Yeah.
So you got to keep it simple. I think it's Donald Miller who says that. But yeah, and then there's another book that talks about the hassle map that you put your customers through. And how can you reduce the amount of hassle that someone has to go through in order to work with you or to get the benefit of what it is that you offer? And the more you can reduce that hassle map, the better.
I like that, the hassle map, and also stress test it with somebody else. If you've been sitting on something, mapping it out yourself, it may seem so obvious to you. I'll give you an example. I used to be MD of the National Golf Handicapping System in South Africa. And we serviced a database of 160,000 golfers. We service 600 golf clubs, software as a service, as well as physical handicapping terminals, so computers that they inputted their scores after each round. And I used to get so infuriated with users contacting us to say that the process made no sense or they were struggling to figure out and follow the process of how do I submit my score. And I used to get so angry until I realized I was part of the process of designing the flow, the workflow, the user experience. And because I designed it, it seemed super simple to me until we sat somebody down in front of it. And then they weren't quite sure where to start. And it was that curse of knowledge for me where I built it essentially. So it was obvious. But as soon as you put somebody with no context in front of it, the learning curve was longer. So stress test it from the end user's point of view as well to make sure it's as easy as possible for them, not you if you designed it.
Exactly. Yep. That's great to do. Rule number 4, there shall be tracking and measurement. We don't permit any advertising, marketing, or selling investments to be made without direct and accurate tracking, measurement, and accountability.
Can't fault that. Agreed.
All right. Yeah, same here. What you measure improves, right?
Yeah. What's the other saying? You can't best what you don't test.
Oh, I like that. I never heard that one. Can't best what you don't test. And number 5, whatever brand building occurs will be a happy byproduct, not bought. Brand power can be acquired as a no cost. Hold on. Let's see what this is what I was just telling you earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be acquired as a no cost byproduct of profitable direct response marketing. By response, gratefully accept brand building as a bonus, but you shouldn't put money towards just brand building, according to Dan.
So what I like about this, what's coming to mind here is 1,000 true fans. If you can there's no point in building your brand necessarily with 100,000 people and spending the dollars to reach those 100,000 people. If actually only 1,000 of those are your true fans and the people that are going to be buying from you, as an example. So what Dan's speaking about here, if I'm understanding correctly, is your brand awareness is going to be a byproduct of being specifically targeting those 1,000 true fans. And that I can get behind. Brand awareness, brand loyalty, that's really targeted to those individuals. And that's a byproduct of making sure that you're focusing on them rather than the spray and pray. I think a lot of times when I think about brand awareness, I am thinking about the monstrous global entities that have huge budgets and they can kind of just own space in Times Square and that sort of thing. That's what they do. But I think the majority of the businesses that you and I are speaking to and will be listening to this would be smaller, way smaller budgets. And what you're spending that on should be reaching the ultimate target customer that you're wanting to build that brand loyalty and brand awareness with. I can get behind his take on that. Yeah,
totally. If you're a small business and you've taken out an SBA loan to get started or mortgaged your house, you don't have that budget to play around with to see if it's going to work 10 years later with that expensive Super Bowl ad or that ad in Times Square. So I tell you what, let's end it here. And then on the next episode, we'll catch up on the next 5.
Yeah. And for the listeners, I'd love to hear if you agree or disagree with our take on each of those 5 rules so far. Do you disagree or agree with all of those? Or what are your insights? What would you add? But I'm looking forward to the next 5.
That's a wrap for today's episode of King Moves. Remember, in chess, like in business, one right move can change everything. Take today's action step, make your move, and build momentum.
If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who's ready for their next breakthrough. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our weekly conversations. Until next time.